Good afternoon. My name is Wilna Oldewage and I am a professor of nutritional sciences at Texas Tech University in Lubbock, United States of America. I am also a research associate at the Department of Sustainable Livelihoods and Development at the University of Free State, South Africa. I wish I could be in South Africa to present this today, but unfortunately this is very, very early in the morning here in Texas, and therefore I had to record this previously. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you to the Oilseeds Advisory Committee for inviting me to do this presentation. Now, I am a registered dietitian in South Africa, and I have approached this presentation from a nutritionist dietitian point of view. So what I'm going to talk about today is I'm going to give you a little bit of a background about the global situation around food and nutrition security or insecurity in the world. I'm also going to talk briefly about the consequences of malnutrition and then the strategies that are being adopted globally to address food insecurity and malnutrition, and then start focusing in on why soy is important in the diet, and then also what are the uses and applications of soy in foods globally, and then I will conclude. So poverty is the underlying factor of food insecurity, hunger and malnutrition. And when people are food insecure, which basically means that they do not have enough resources to procure and consume an adequate diet, that often results in malnutrition, and malnutrition leads to poor physical and cognitive development in children, and which will then also result when they grow older in low productivity because of the poor cognitive development, and this whole cycle is just going to start repeating itself. Now, before COVID, the world was already, we had a large percentage of people that were food insecure in the world, and we also had problems with malnutrition. And therefore, 6 years ago, the Sustainable Development Goals were implemented by the United Nations in order to address the problems of food insecurity and malnutrition in the world. But today, the world is very different to what it looked like 6 years ago, and we are at a critical point in time, because with the COVID virus or the coronavirus 19, that really exacerbated the food insecurity and malnutrition last year. So what happened to poverty? The pandemic led to 97 million more people living in poverty in 2020, and a total of 732 million people are living in poverty in the world. And if we look at sub-Saharan Africa, it is estimated that in 2021, 478 million people will be poor living in sub-Saharan Africa. Similarly, there has an increase in even food insecurity in 2020. 161 million more people were food insecure in 2020 than in 2019, and this was can mainly be ascribed to the coronavirus, where people had lost their jobs, they had a lack of resources, lack of money, and also shops that were being closed, low access of food during the coronavirus situation. And if we look at this, food insecurity has been climbing steadily since 2014, but we can see that even last year it has climbed significantly almost in all the areas of the world except in Northern America and Europe. And if we look at the percentage of people just living in Africa, almost 60% of the people in Africa are now have food insecurity, which means they do not have enough resources to access an adequate diet. Now, what happens with food insecurity is that people do not only become undernourished when they are food insecure, but also overnourished and can become overweight and obese. So if we look at undernourishment, for instance, with inadequate infant and child feeding, for instance, when there is not enough food in the household, it can lead to an insufficient intake of calories, proteins, vitamins and minerals, which can then result in child stunting and wasting, and also micronutrient deficiencies. But at the same time, adults can now resort to consuming more inexpensive, high-calorie and low-nutrient-dense foods that may lead to overweight and obesity. So this is this whole paradox about food insecurity and overweight and obesity. We can see that globally at the moment, if we look at the circle, the yellow circle, 1 in 9 people is hungry or undernourished in the world. And childhood stunting is still a big problem, affecting 149 million children. Childhood stunting is really short stature, where there is growth retardation because of a more chronic shortage of food, whereas childhood wasting is more of an acute situation, and therefore there is about 7.3% of the children are wasted. They were in 2018. But if we look at what is happening about overweight and obesity, that is becoming an even bigger problem in the world at the moment, with 1 in 3 adults being overweight or obese in the world. And children as young as 5-year-old or less than 5 years old are now also affected by obesity and or overweight and obesity, with about 40 million already. And this is just getting, as they grow, this percentage is just getting higher and higher, where we're looking at school-age children of 5 to 9 years old. 20% of the world population are overweight, adolescents 17%, and then up to about 40% of the adults. So overweight and this presence of overweight and undernutrition in the world, we call the double burden, and that is still a big problem in a lot of countries in the world. Now, we also know that overweight and obesity is also associated with a lot of comorbidities, of which diabetes, high blood pressure, and cardiovascular disease are just 3 to name. So when we talk about the consequences of malnutrition, besides all the health consequences that we have already also started talking about, micronutrient deficiencies, poor growth, poor cognitive development, there are also basically the whole life cycle is affected by food insecurity and malnutrition. So we cannot say that one age group is less affected or more affected. We really need to look at what is happening and seeing that everybody is affected by food insecurity, poverty, food insecurity, and nutrition. There are also some social consequences like worry, anxiety, deprivation, alienation, distress, also a whole lot of other uncertainty that people face besides the health consequences that can also then exacerbate this whole situation of malnutrition. By people that are depressed will probably not eat properly, or they will do binge eating to try and forget about their stress. They may also resort to maybe substance abuse and not eat properly. That will also result in more malnutrition, just as an example. But what I want to really focus on is really the economic consequences. Malnutrition, the World Bank in 2006 already found that malnutrition slows economic growth, which again result in poverty through direct losses in productivity because people have poor physical status, but also the indirect losses from poor cognitive function, lack of school education, and also through losses through increased healthcare costs. And the economic losses attributed to malnutrition can range anything from 6 to 12% of the gross national product of a country. So therefore, malnutrition and its treatment is really then a costly drain on the national economy, specifically on the health budget of countries, especially the lower income and middle income countries where this is a problem. Now we know that there are a lot of causes for malnutrition, food insecurity, but the interesting thing is that the common denominator of all forms of malnutrition, be it an insufficient intake of nutrients or inadequate intake or overconsumption, that is poor diets. Poor diets can lead to both overweight and obesity, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, as well as micronutrient stunting and wasting on the other hand. We also know that it's very difficult to afford a healthy diet, and that more people in 2019 and 2020 could not afford a healthy diet. And the healthy diet also has become much more expensive during the COVID period last year. If we just look at sub-Saharan Africa, about 85% of the people cannot afford a healthy diet on the continent. So this is really cause for concern. There are many strategies to address food insecurity and malnutrition. And I'm not going to go into all the details of all of these, but all these major organizations like the World Health Organization, UNICEF, the FAO, they all have strategies to address food insecurity and malnutrition. Also, the Sustainable Development Goals is also a strategy to reduce poverty, zero hunger, food insecurity, and malnutrition. But then, from a nutritionist point of view, and more on a country level and a household and individual level, what we really want to do is to really promote healthy foods and healthy diets that are diverse and representative of all the food groups. We also promote physical activity. Countries can also have supplementation programs specifically to look at or to address the micronutrient deficiencies, fortification programs also to address micronutrient deficiencies. But what I really want to focus on is the food diversification strategy, where the agricultural production of healthy foods become important, nutrition education to people and awareness programs, and that can be done through the food-based dietary guidelines that are usually drawn up for all the different countries to address the specific problems that they have, the nutritional problems in the country. But what I also want to talk about is sustainable food product development, because that is really where we see where a difference can be made in a country. Now, we also know that there are various drivers that are transmitted throughout the food system that can undermine food security and nutrition. It is a very complex system to really intervene in to make sure that people do get affordability of healthy diets, and that the food supply chains can actually produce and affordable healthy diets. But there are many factors. But the one thing that I would like to show is that the Food Security and Nutrition in the World report of 2021 has recommended number 4 here to intervene along the food supply chain to lower the cost of nutritious foods. We've already seen that foods are becoming more, the healthy diet is becoming more expensive. Food insecurity is becoming a problem because people have lost their jobs, and all of this through the COVID, and all of this is really resulting in malnutrition that can also affect the GNP of a country. Interestingly, the Global Nutrition Report in 2020 also said that an equity-sensitive approach to food systems is key to ensuring healthy, accessible, and affordable food for all. So affordability and healthy foods should be produced. This is becoming key to transform systems and to progress to end malnutrition in the world. So why are we looking at soy? Talking about the poverty, food insecurity, and this whole poverty cycle that we have mentioned earlier. As nutritionists, we cannot often make a difference in the poverty situation in a country, but where we really want to what we really want to promote are strategies to break this cycle and prevent people from becoming food insecure and malnourished. Now, why do we say soy is a solution to this? Because soy is nutritious, it is environmentally friendly and sustainable to produce, it is affordable, and it is also a very versatile product. So just to look at this, first of all, the nutritional benefits of soy. It has the most important, it has a high protein content, 38% protein in the soybean. And what is important about the protein of the soybean is that it contains all the essential amino acids that are needed for growth and development. This is one of the only plant proteins that is a complete protein that is very comparable to the protein. So the vitamins, specifically the iron, zinc, calcium, and magnesium, are also very good quantities of vitamins and minerals in the soybean, as well as the protein and fiber, are all important parts of a healthy diet. It also contains beneficial phytochemicals such as the isoflavonoids that have antioxidative properties that will keep the bodies healthy. It also has an anti-atherogenic effect, which is protective against heart disease. It will also reduce blood pressure, whereas the soy protein in the soybean has been found to lower diastolic blood pressure, and it will also lower the bad cholesterol in the body, like the low density lipoprotein cholesterol, total cholesterol, and triglycerides, and it increases the good cholesterol, which is the high density lipoprotein cholesterol in the body. So there is also an FDA claim that says that the consumption of 19.5 grams of soy oil daily, if it replaces the same amount of saturated fat from the diet, it may reduce the risk of coronary heart disease. So we can see that the soy protein and the isoflavonoids have a protective effect against heart disease and hypertension. Similarly, the oils in the soybean are mostly your polyunsaturated fatty acids and monounsaturated fatty acids that also have a protective effect on heart disease. Also, what the soybean also has, it has galacto-oligosaccharides, which is a potent prebiotic, which is then also protecting the gastrointestinal tract. It also improves glucose metabolism, the consumption of soy, and there are also phytoestrogens that are beneficial during menopause. So we can see that the soybean has a lot of nutritious When we're talking about the sustainability benefits of soy, we know that soybeans produce more kilograms of usable protein per acre of farmland than all other forms of complete protein. And it has been found that soy production is 17 times more effective than any other protein. Similarly, soy also uses less water than other forms of complete proteins, and then is also contributes to the sustainability issue. And then when we talk about soy protein, the affordability, it has been proven as an environmentally conservative protein resource and has also been proven to be the most cost-effective form of protein in the short and long term to produce and also for people to consume. So when we're talking about the versatility of soy in human diet, we can see that the soybean can be used for a lot of foods. If we think of our edamame that can be eaten as it is, or the soybean that can be processed into milk, oil, soy sauce, tofu. Then also in the food industry, soy protein has a lot of uses, and that can be in the form of soy flour, the soy protein concentrate, or soy protein isolate. And all three of these are used in multiple applications that we will see a little bit later. There are also the texturized soy protein that can also be used as a meat analog. It can be used alone, or it can also be combined with meat in meat dishes. And then lecithin, which is a byproduct from soy oil processing, can also be used as an emulsifier in a variety of products in the food industry. So when we're looking at uses for soy in foods globally, I want to quickly take you through some products that are used, or what soy is used in around the world. Now, these are some of the well-known soy foods: soy milk, soy sauce, miso, also something like a broth, tofu, and tempeh, which is the fermented soy product that is very familiar. And then what we also are very familiar with are the infant formulas for babies that are allergic to milk or to cow's milk or has a lactose intolerance, and therefore these soy formulas we are aware of. But let us have a look at some of the uses of edamame globally. Edamame can be used as a dry roasted edamame, and that is used as a snack food, and they can flavor it with various flavors. They can also mix the edamame, roasted edamame, with different nuts, dried fruits, to also become snack foods. And with the assistance of extrusion, they can also change this into a chip that can then be used as a chip, or you can use these chips to add protein to salad. Edamame is also sold in a variety of other products overseas. To start on the left, often in supermarkets, edamame sprouts are available that can be used in salads. Frozen edamame and fresh edamame that are already cooked, or the frozen is already cooked and it can be shelled or it can be in the pots, are also sold, or fresh edamame in bags can also be bought already shelled or still in the pots that still need to be cooked. The edamame is also added to a lot of ready-to-eat foods, like for instance the picture at the top, and also in a variety of salads that can be bought on the shelves. Whole soybeans are often sold as the whole soybean that people can use, and I've also seen that this is also popular in markets in Africa, where the soybeans can be bought on the market. Soybeans are also canned, and you can find canned soybeans available on the supermarkets. Then soy nuts, that is also roasted soybeans that are used as a snack, that can be like the edamame, roasted edamame, can also be used as a snack and flavored with different flavors. But the soy nuts are also used to produce soy butter, or just a buttery spread, as they would call it. And they also can chop up the soy nuts and produce soy grits. And what they will do with this is they will add this to different types of dishes, meat dishes, vegetable dishes, to add more protein and fiber to the diet. And they also use the soy nuts to produce soy coffee that is also available overseas. When we talk about soy oil can be used for frying foods and cooking of foods, but it's also used to produce mayonnaise and margarine. Some dairy alternatives from soy milk that can be used is to produce ice cream, yogurt, soy cheese, and what is also available is soy dried milk, soy milk powder on the market. Very frequently, any supermarket you find that. When we look at the protein uses of soy flour concentrations and soy protein isolate, these are used in a variety of products, especially in the bakery industry, in breads and rolls, batters, breading, cakes, cake mixes, biscuits, cookies, pastries, high protein bars, snack foods again, pastas and noodles. They also use this to produce noodles and pastas. Also there's an edamame spaghetti that can be on the market. Also used in soups and gravies to increase the protein content of all things. We are familiar in South Africa with breakfast cereals and porridges that are made with soy. This is also, you can find a large variety of soy porridges and breakfast cereals overseas. But an interesting thing is that they also use it for ready-to-drink beverages to increase the protein content and the nutritious value of fruit juices. Then specific uses for the soy protein isolate is in processed and restructured meats, and that is really for the emulsion stabilizing properties or the emulsifying properties that soy protein isolate has. It's also used in weight loss powders, shakes, bodybuilding, sport applications, and again in high protein bars. Uses of texturized soy protein is vast overseas. You can buy the dried soy, texturized soy protein, but you can also find it in all sorts of frozen and fresh products. For instance, grillers, like a minced meat, and then also veggie burgers, sausages, even a bacon, vegetable bacon, some chicken products where they mimic chicken nuggets, also in vegetable rolls. So globally, if you think about all these products in where are they used, they are mainly used for vegetarian foods, also for when people have lactose intolerances, dairy allergies. Also, a lot of countries have their food-based dietary guidelines for the prevention of non-communicable diseases, and on almost all of the countries they have a food-based dietary guideline that promotes legumes and soy consumption. Soy products are also used in institutional feeding, for example, elderly care centers, and a lot in school nutrition programs. And I've mentioned sport, for example, bodybuilding, and also in emergency feeding programs when there is an acute food insecurity due to maybe a hurricane or floods or something that's happening. But it can also be used in clinical applications for the treatment of diseases, for instance, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, menopause, as I mentioned earlier. And I know these studies were not done globally, but this is just an idea of where I have used in South Africa a combination of nutrition education, soy and vegetable gardening, and food preparation skills training interventions to determine the effect on dietary intake and diversity in women in Kwakwa. I've also looked at the effect on consumption of soy foods on the blood lipid profile of women. And I've also looked at the consumption of soy foods on metabolic syndrome in women, also in women from Kwakwa. And in all three of these studies, I have really found significant improvements in metabolic syndrome, dietary diversity, and also cardiovascular disease risk with the consumption of of soy. So to conclude, food insecurity and malnutrition remain persistent in the world, and it is really important that we have to ensure that people have access to affordable, healthy and sustainably produced foods, and this is vital to recover from the pandemic and also build resilience for the future. So there are many opportunities for soy processors. You can see that there is a vast range of products that are used overseas, not so much in Africa, and especially in South Africa, the soy processors can still do a lot to get more soy products on the market. And I just want to mention what the product or the program that is funded by the Oilseeds Advisory Committee, where my PhD student, his picture is here, Temitope Ibiyemi, and myself, we are in the process of developing nutritious snack multi-mixes from soy nuts, and also snack development to address the under and overnutrition problems that we do have in South Africa. If you have any questions, please send me an email, and thank you so much for your attention, and thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to share this with you. Thank you. Bye-bye.